Livilge's giant body, caught in the immense nihility energy, was now expanding as if about to explode from the rebound of the compression. Since it was dangerous to leave it like that, I began absorbing it with soul gluttony. And with that, it was done. Now, all that remained was to defeat the humanoid Livilge. I was convinced of my victory, but as the saying goes, fortune and misfortune are like the strands of a twisted rope. Livilge's malice was far more vicious than I had imagined. Livilge, having had her massive split body annihilated, was being consumed by the emotion of rage. She had become one with Velgaia, and had even secured Lucia as a bonus. She was immersed in a sense of omnipotence, believing that she had now become a perfect being and possessed everything. And yet, she remained unable to defeat this impudent existence known as Rimuru. Far from it, she had actually suffered the stinging blow of losing her split body. To Livilge, this was nothing short of absolute humiliation. It wasn't as if she were holding back in order to torment him. Initially, she had gone a little easy on him, but she had quickly realized that was unnecessary. She had been trying to defeat Rimuru with as much power as she could muster without losing her composure, but that hadn't even been enough to matter. Since she could nullify Rimuru's authorities, she took no damage. However, Livilge's authorities were also being nullified, resulting in a mutual deadlock, a complete stalemate. However, a displeasing turn of events took place. Her options had been reduced. The massive body had been useful in its own right, so its destruction was both vexing and infuriating. That said, it was of low priority. It had merely been formed from leaking energy, and she simply had to create it again. However, emotionally, she could not forgive this. Livilge decided she must retaliate. She would not be satisfied until she punished the impudent Rimuru. Simply defeating him would not be enough to quell her rage. In that regard, Rimuru was full of weaknesses. He had gotten angry because she provoked those weaknesses, but emotions were nothing but a hindrance in battle. Therefore, all she had to do was provoke him further and rob Rimuru of his ability to make rational judgments. If I do that, I win. Livilge reached this conclusion and sneered evilly. And just then, Rimuru's attention was focused on Livilge's split body. Livilge turned her gaze toward the heroes at the edge of her vision, who had been turned into ice statues. There were those left behind by the suspended world, unable to even grasp what was happening. To Livilge, they were no threat at all, mere toys to be broken. Yet to Rimuru, they were precious treasures that had to be protected. For Livilge, it allowed her to vent her grudge against Rimuru by taking it out on them, while simultaneously provoking him further. It was truly killing two birds with one stone. Kai ha ha ha. In high spirits, she charged toward the ice statues. Ah, crap. I panicked, even though I had been keeping an eye on Livilge's main body. Velgaia has it under perfect fixation, but I can't say that makes us safe. If that alone were foolproof, then no attack would ever work on me. However, reality isn't like that, so a proper countermeasure was necessary. Even reinforced by Velgaia's authority, they wouldn't be able to endure if targeted one by one. Seriously, Livilge has a terrible personality. I'm facing him with genuine anger, yet he hasn't shaken off his playful mood. Retaliating out of sheer pique, it's such a childish reaction. Willem and the others sensed Livilge's intent and moved to solidify their defenses. However, Livilge was simply too fast. They couldn't react in time. My assessment was that even just a body check would likely cause casualties. If they were torn apart here, could they be resurrected once the suspended world was released? If a body remained, there might be a chance, but if they were blown to smithereens, resurrection might be hopeless. In Livilge's line of sight were Gabel, Geld, and even Hinata. Looking in another direction, Adalman and Gadra were there too. Kai ha ha ha. I'll teach you this time. I'll teach you what loneliness feels like. None of your damn business is what I wanted to complain back. Thinking I absolutely had to stop him, I focused entirely on Livilge's movements. Then, I realized. I intended to overtake him using teleportation before his attack exploded, but apparently, that wasn't necessary. In Livilge's path, there was someone crouching low, holding a large sword and a dachi. Quiet as death, motionless like the others stuck in frozen time. That person's name was Shion. The moment Livilge entered her range, she launched a sudden plummeting attack. Fool. On behalf of Rimuru-sama, I shall deliver divine punishment. God's Slayer. True. Chaotic fate. It was a blade that severed even intertwining grudges. It was the ultimate strike Shion had attained. The unleashed sword strike traced a phantasmagoric trajectory and reached Livilge. So you gave Shion permission to acquire the God Slayer authority just for this moment? No, I didn't. And God Slayer authority. That's the first I've heard of it. Since I didn't grant it, Shion must have acquired it on her own. Actually, I was worried because I couldn't see her, but she showed up at the perfect time. I thought she might have hit her head somewhere and passed out. I could feel she was alive, but to think she was lying in wait for a chance to shine. Landing an effective blow on Livilge was truly a monumental victory. Even so, it was a blind spot. In reality, if one suppresses their presence and stops moving, they become indistinguishable from those left behind in the suspended world. Even if recognized, you can't tell the difference from the other heroes. If he knew she could move from the start, he would have been cautious, but with this many people, it's easy to overlook someone. It's doubtful Luvelge even remembers people's faces, so a simple strategy like this was actually more effective. Though, she could have been treated as an obstacle and eliminated, so it was a dangerous gamble. It was Shion's decisiveness and boldness that allowed her to strike a retaliatory blow. Thanks to the surprise attack, Shion managed to wound Luvelge. That said, it was only a cut on a fingertip, far from fatal. Still, it was a sufficient result. After all, due to that slash from below, launched completely outside his awareness, Luvelge dropped the jewel he had been clutching between his hands. That jewel had a shape resembling combined black and white magatama, reminiscent of the Taiji symbol. Being spherical, it likely looked different depending on the angle, but it was a beautiful jewel with a mysterious allure. The jewel danced through the air, only to be chomped down by a small dragon flying in. Oh. What? Gaia. You mustn't eat strange things. The small dragon was Gaia. It seems Milim, who had chased after us, was holding him, and he flew out upon seeing the jewel. I don't think he mistook it for food. Gaia must have had his own thoughts. Milim is just being too overprotective. On the other hand, Luvelge, having her jewels stolen, was crouching down holding her head. It's unclear what exactly was happening, but that jewel seemed quite important. Most likely, it is a memento of Veldanava and Lucia. It appears he absorbed the remnants of power and authority, but I deduce he could not steal the heart core. Ah, that sounds plausible. Veldanava was the creator god, after all. Everything couldn't be stolen that easily. Wait, where did Diverge even? It appears they were originally the same existence. Really? If so, it makes sense there was no way to prevent unification. Wait. Thinking about it that way, Shion, who severed that connection, really achieved something incredible. Everything is in the palm of Master's hand, is it not? No. Absolutely not. Overestimating me is Seal's sense unchanging bad habit. Thinking good grief, I pondered what to do next. Luvelge seemed to snap out of it, flapping the wings on his back to float into the air. He rose and glared down at us. Unforgivable. Stealing my treasure. I will absolutely not forgive you. Spitting curses, her power rose rapidly. No, that wasn't just rising. She is going out of control. It is deduced that the jewel acted as a calculation device and controlled her power. Ugh, I knew it. Normally, an opponent losing control of their power means certain defeat, but Luvelge is different. She possesses inexhaustible magicules and vast energy. Not only that, she can nullify all authorities and possesses a means of attack that pierces through everything. If that ridiculous energy is used for a direct attack, few life forms on the surface would survive. I can handle it somehow, but protecting everyone is impossible. Even the Great Barrier maintained by Milim, Rammus, and the others with Gaia at the center, would likely only buy time. I have to end this before she releases that power, I muttered. The problem is how effective a full power attack will be. Luvelge's clone went down in one hit, but will it work on the main body in front of me? As I hesitated, a voice echoed in my brain. I understand it is unreasonable to ask this of you, but I want you to give that child a name. I felt two wills. Veldanava and Lucia. And that child must mean Gaia. They are residual thoughts. The individuals themselves are long gone. Yet, conveying their feelings to me means there is a reason to do so. As for how they left the message, the trick is simple. Gaia was originally something like Veldanava's reincarnation, so they could directly influence Gaia's soul. Using Gaia as a host to house their remnants. The intention behind it is likely parental love, wanting to protect their daughter. Gaia. Kairi. When I called out, Gaia escaped Milim's arms and fluttered over. She looked at me, wondering what was up. I stared back at Gaia. Right, what name would be good? What is Rimuru thinking? He's probably planning to do something ridiculous again. Rimuru, that bastard, really is hopeless. Talk about time and place. Kufufufufu, I will not allow disrespect toward Rimuru-sama, Gi. Shut up. I hate agreeing with Diablo, but Gi, doubting God's work is unforgivable. Seriously, shut up. The peanut gallery is noisy. Extremely annoying. Even Tensura and Dino's groups are discussing their opinions. I question the lack of voices worrying about me, but if I let that bother me, I lose. Shutting out the outside noise, I focused on Gaia. Right. From today on, you are the Earth's star dragon, Velgaia. Inherit the will of Milim's parent and your creator, and live from this day forth as a new true dragon. As soon as I declared it, Gaia shone. Kairi. Gaia cried out in joy. It was the birth of a new true dragon. I almost said the fifth one, but considering I also have the true dragon attribute, it gets a bit complicated. I decided it should be recorded officially that there are 5 orthodox true dragons. Now then, did he really turn into a true dragon? He has. The birth of my little brother. You fool. We don't have genders. That's right. It depends on who we love. Either way is fine, so shall we welcome him? Dear sisters, please do not get involved in Velgaia's education. Oh, why is that? That is, in other words. Veldora and the others seem to acknowledge Velgaia has become a true dragon. The conversation is derailing, and I can imagine the miserable future Veldora is heading toward, so I shifted my consciousness to Velgaia. I feel a definite connection between Milim and Velgaia, and for some reason, he was connected to me too. It is likely the influence of naming. You acquired True Dragon Core Transformation Earth Star. Apparently, since I didn't acquire True Dragon Release, I can't absorb Velgaia. Yet, strangely, with Velgaia's consent, it can be converted into a True Dragon Core. Wonders never cease. Well, my hope had 3 slots. Wait, looking closely, another one had opened up. Velgaia-kun. Kai. He was fully intent on helping. I decided to honestly accept his goodwill. Now then, taking in the power of Gaia, now Velgaia, my hope shone bewitchingly. The 7 colors were mysterious and incredibly beautiful.